Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 12, verse number 28. Okay, so Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Oh, okay, we're not quite yet. We're not quite there yet. So wait till the verse comes up, and it'll help. Okay, so I'll repeat this again. Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Sabha Tanhara Gochara. Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Sabha Tanhara Gochara. Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Shabha Tanhara Gochara.
Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Sabha Tumhara Kukara.
Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Sabha Tanhara Gochara.
Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Shabha Tanhara Gochara. Vaishnavis.
Kamalakanto Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Shabha Tanhara Gochara. Kamalakanta Vishvasanama Acharya Kinkara. Acharya Vyavahara Sabha Tanhara Gochara.
Okay. Kamalakanta Vishvasa. Kamalakanta Vishvas. A nama of the name. Acharya Kinkara. Servant of Advaita Acharya. Acharya Vyavahara. The dealings of Advaita Acharya. Shabha. Oh. Tanhara. His. Gochara. Within the knowledge. Translation in purple by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Advaita Acharya's very confidential servant named Kamalakanta Vishvasa knew all the dealings of Advaita Acharya. Purple. The name Kamalakanta, the name Kamalananda, the name Kamalananda, mentioned in the Adi Lila 10.149, and the name Kamalakanta, mentioned in the Madhya Lila 10.94, both refer to the same man. Kamalakanta, a very confidential servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, born in a Brahmana family, engaged in the service of Sri Advaita Acharya as his secretary. When Paramananda Puri went from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri, he took Kamalakanta Vishvas with him, and they both went to see Lord Chaitanya at Jagannath Puri. It is mentioned in the Madhya Lila 1094 that one of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, the Brahmana Kamalakanta, went with Paramananda Puri to Jagannath Puri. Okay, so please repeat after me. Advaita Acharya's very confidential servant, named Kamalakanta Vishvas, knew all the dealings of Advaita Acharya. Megyanathamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhikanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasali Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to begin by saying it's a real pleasure to be with all of you, all the devotees of ISKCON-London, the world-famous Radha Londonishvara, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani, Shri Gaunitai. And we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 12, verse number 28. This chapter is entitled Expansions of Advaita Acharya and Gadadhar Pandit. So in this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, we are learning about the servant, or one of the servants of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya's very confidential servant, named Kamalakanta Vishvas. And what will transpire over the next few verses is that he's sent a note. And the note is to the king, Maharaj Prataparudra. And it is actually a note that finds its way into the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's not pleased when he reads what's the contents of the note. A couple of things. So first of all, this very confidential servant, Kamalakanta, he understands Advaita Acharya's position. Because Advaita Acharya is in that category, tattva. Tat means that, va means ness, tattva, category. What category? Vishnu tattva. So Kamalakanta understands that this Advaita Acharya, he is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Technically, he is the combined form of Mahavishnu and Sadashiv. It's an incarnation of God. So he's recognized that point. But also there's a point that Advaita Acharya has some debt. And so in this communication, he's trying to dissolve the debt. So Lord Chaitanya becomes upset and decides, I'm going to punish this servant. Right? He's recognized that Advaita Acharya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can the Supreme Personality of Godhead have a debt? Right? Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam Bhuta Bhavana samamvita. He's the source of everything. Right? Technically, Ma Vishnu, from the pores of his skin, entire universe has come. Right? So he's the source of everything. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decides, I'm going to punish this Kamalakanta. Right? And so he tells Govinda, his servant, I don't want to see this person. Basically, don't let him approach me. Advaita Acharya also finds out. And when Kamalakanta Vishwas finds out, he's heartbroken. Completely heartbroken. He's being punished by the Lord. He won't be able to approach the Lord. When Advaita Acharya finds out, he's jubilant. Not only is he jubilant, he considers, and he actually tells Kamalakanta, you actually got more mercy than I did. So the theme here is that the punishment and the reward of the Lord is equally beneficial. And Prabhupada will go on to talk about this in future purports, soon after this particular verse. And he uses this word reversals. Have you ever in your spiritual life had any reversals? It's an interesting theory, right? So we consider what's happening to us, who did it? Okay? Who did it? Was it Krishna, or was it that bhakta that I don't like? Who did it to me? So we all have experiences in our lives. And it's actually very interesting because we try to make sense of our experiences. In fact, it's actually therapeutic. When someone is able to make sense of what happened to me? Who did it? Why did they do it? It actually helps them to come to terms with it. So in the ultimate sense, the Vedic literature is always giving us that understanding. How to make sense of the experiences that we have. Sometimes there's a debate, do devotees have karma? Right? Sometimes when devotees think about this consideration, it gets very interesting. Any good karma I have, Krishna, that's okay, I can handle that, you know? But anything bad that's going to happen to me, Krishna, you should take that away. But the devotional process, it doesn't quite work that way. We sometimes don't like to admit it, but sometimes we grow the most through our challenges, isn't it? Be honest, right? It is sometimes through the challenges that we become most refined, developed, strengthened. There's this idea that, sometimes people do exercise. And the first few exercises, let's say sit-ups or press-ups is easy. It's not much of a strain. But when you're really tired and you just squeeze out a few more repetitions, it is considered when you stretch yourself at that point where you're at capacity and you push a little bit more, that does more to build your muscle than everything you've done before it. So Krishna understands this principle. And therefore, he gives us, from time to time, opportunities to stretch. And to stretch can mean to strengthen our devotion, to become spiritually stronger. But it's all dependent on having a particular view of reality. The Vedic literature is here to train us into a particular view of reality. And if we have the wrong view, we have the wrong values. There's a value system that everyone sees the world through. And all of us. Because we're all individuals, it's not that, and you'll see this in the world increasingly, it's not that we necessarily see the environment differently. It is that we attribute different meaning to the environment. Right? We consider, yes, in the environment we see these things. We see that some things are more important, we see that some things are less important. The Pandavas that were in hiding, they were disguised as brahmanas, and they were in the palace of a king. And they were looking around the palace, and they noticed all the weapons on the wall. So they were looking at the weapons, and the king was actually watching them. And the moment he saw them looking at the weapons, he understood these people are not Brahmanas. No way. They're so enamored by all the weapons on the wall, right? They can't be Brahmanas. A Brahmana in the environment, he would look at all the scriptures, things like that. These people are admiring, just look at that sword, it's fantastic, great, they're looking at all the weapons on the wall. So he understood immediately, because they value those particular types of things, that's what stands out to them in the environment, right? The vision and the values are connected. Depending on what we value in any environment, some things stand out to us and some things recede into the background. Vision and values. Just like if you hadn't eaten for a long time, you come into the temple, the first thing you would notice is opportunities for what? Prasadam. You see? That's it. That would stand out. Because if I asked you to close your eyes right now and tell me everything that was in the room, you wouldn't remember everything. You would remember the things which stood out to you for a particular reason. So vision and values. So this Shastra Chakshus, sometimes it's called Gyan Chakshus, it is something very, very powerful. Because as it becomes developed, what the devotee sees in the environment is they see Krishna. They see Krishna communicating with them in the environment. If our values are the values of Krishna consciousness, then our vision is Krishna will peek out to you through the external world. A friend of mine was talking to me recently about an experience that he had. He was initiated not that long ago, in the last few years. And so he had to go to some family event or family gathering, he was telling me. And it was getting late, so he was thinking, I'll finish my rounds the next day. And then someone came up to him in the family gathering and said, you practice Krishna consciousness, don't you? And the person said to him, so how many rounds did you vow to chant every day? He told me that. The person said to him, so how many rounds did you vow to chant every day? And he understood immediately. Krishna was reminding him, you've made a vow, right? You better make sure you get those rounds done, those 16 rounds done. He told me that just recently, just about a week ago. So Krishna is hiding in the environment. And what is it that brings out Krishna? Right? The question comes up in a devotee's life, how do I know what Krishna wants of me? It's a very beautiful question. I once heard my spiritual master answer this question. He said, no problem. In whatever service you're doing, do it with devotion. Right? In whatever service you're doing, do it sincerely. Right? What was this? Anyabilasata shunyam gyanakamadhanavritam anukulyena Krishna nushilanam bhakti uttama. An activity done favorably for the pleasure of Krishna, free of the desire for karma or gyan. He said, just serve, do whatever service you're currently doing with as sincerely and devotionally as possible, and Krishna will organically make the arrangement. You see, in the material world, there's an implicit kind of wrong training that we receive. In the material world, we are implicitly encouraged to believe that it's all about the form. But Krishna consciousness teaches us it's all about the substance, it's all about the devotion. So when you're doing something and there's a genuine desire to do it for the pleasure of Krishna, what happens is you immediately draw his attention. Who's that person who's trying to serve me with love? Right? Sometimes even in your interactions with others, you can feel that. Someone, they just really want to serve you. And you just notice, I'm shocked. Like, who's this person? Like, they really tried to serve me so sincerely, tried to arrange everything nicely. Who is that person? And it draws the attention of the individual in the same way, in exactly the same way. It is the devotion that draws the attention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we serve as sincerely as possible, and especially for those who are initiated or who have, let's put it this another way, especially for those who've been given an instruction or instructions by the spiritual master, then that is especially key. Because now that good intention has a form. Right? And what does that service or instruction mean? It means that on the other side of the instruction, Krishna will meet you. Krishna is so beautiful, this devotional process. Where, for example, this month of Kartik is here. What is this month of Kartik? This month of Kartik where we hear about Nalakuvera and Manigriva. They're cursed to appear as twin Arjuna trees. And similar point, right? So Lord Chaitanya is going to punish this Kamala Vishwas. Who decided I'm going to curse Nalakuvera Manigriva? Narada Muni. In this pastime, it's in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, around chapter 10. Prabhupada explains in more than one more than one purport, the curse and the blessing of a Vaishnava, they're the same. Right? So although they were cursed to appear as twin Arjuna trees, who comes by to actually liberate them? None other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. So the curse and the blessing are the same. So we have to develop this equanimity. And when I was thinking about this section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it became more and more clear. You don't develop this unless you try. Yeah? You don't develop the devotional mentality unless one makes an effort to develop it. Well, the mistake that we often make in devotional life is we allow the material energy to make us reactive. So if you drift in Krishna consciousness, if you have no sankalpa, you have no determination, I'm not fixed on going in a particular direction, then the material energy will probably beat you up, to be really honest with you, because you're drifting. If you have no direction, to slap, one slap after another slap. But if instead you're very clear, this is where I'm going, and you have strong sankalpas, that means a strong determination. I will finish reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. I will chant 16 rounds by 8 a.m. You have to put your energy and your focus somewhere. If you put your energy and your focus in a particular direction, your spiritual life will always remain enthusiastic, because you'll develop this devotional strength. It's like a gravitational pull. You're not adrift. You have a certain determination. So going back, this point is that the spiritual master's instruction gives form to your devotion. Or we could say the instructions of our seniors, our gurus, our guides. It gives form to the devotion. In this Damodar Lila, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about it, he makes this famous point about these two parts of the rope which was too short. They represent effort and mercy. So devotees often don't understand what that means in practice. The sadhya, the goal of Krishna consciousness, we should understand it is given to you. Right? It is not that we achieve it because of our own effort. It's actually always a gift. This is what Kripa means. Kripa means that someone saw you trying and decided, I'm going to give them a gift. To use two analogies, number one, it's one analogy I read in one devotional literature. Number one is that, did any of you have the experience that when you're young, sometimes your parents will give you some housework to do? Yeah? Okay. And they'll tell you that, if you do the washing up for the next 2 weeks, I'll buy you a bike. Like that. Well, there's something along those lines. Now, if that washing up, if you're washing the pots and pans or plates, if you were doing it as a paid job for 2 weeks, the amount of money you would be paid would not be enough for you to actually pay for that bike. So it's not that the effort actually got you the bike, right? But the effort did what? There was an agency between your effort and the outcome. That agent is the pure devotees. The agent is ultimately Krishna. So what we're doing in Krishna consciousness, and why we should be always humble in Krishna consciousness, is that we should understand that what we receive in Krishna consciousness is actually a gift. And that is why the more one receives, the more that one becomes humble. Because they understand that someone gave it to me. Another analogy, someone gives you a map and they tell you, look, there's some treasure at this particular location. If you go there and dig it up, you can claim the treasure. So you say, well, I use my Google Maps really, really well. I'm great at reading maps, right? And I walked over there with great intention and endeavor. I walked over there, yeah, great. But that endeavor didn't put the gold under that ground. Someone told you that the gold was there. So even when you claim the gold, The gold did not come, did not appear, did not manifest because of your hard efforts. All you did was use the effort to claim something that someone else had already put there. They told you where it was. Psst, if you go here, you can get these gold nuggets. So that is actually the nature of this devotional process. Right? And this mercy, this creeper, it is so extremely valuable. So how does it actually work in reality? In reality, the way it works is every single one of us are dependent on the mercy of the Vaishnavas, especially, every single one of us are dependent on the mercy of pure devotees. If you want your spiritual life to absolutely go off the scale, and if you want to see real amazing things happen in your spiritual life, you only need to learn to do one thing. We have to somehow or other get the mercy of great devotees of the Lord. So you can think of your devotional journey like a plane that's in flight. And you can consider the mercy of the pure devotees like the fuel in the plane. So your plane has this form, great. But without the fuel, your plane will crash. You see? And that is why the process is one of dependence. Right? That's why the process is one of dependence. It's because the sadhya is a gift. We make effort, we have to make effort, but we should understand what the effort is for. The effort is to receive the grace of those pure devotees. Sometimes that grace is named in different ways. You can also consider it is the achintya shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as is being carried by the devotees. And if you get that grace, and if you make it a point throughout your spiritual life to go looking for that grace. And by the way, that grace also resides within all the devotees to differing degrees. If you can collect that grace, you will see that everything about your spiritual life will go off the scale. It will actually pop. Because devotees don't understand this properly, we tend to think it's all happening by my own strength. And if you think there's a symptom of that, you can tell what's going on in a person's consciousness by the way that they practice devotional life. When someone thinks that it's happening by my own strength, then whatever happens, whatever they achieve, they become what? They become proud. You see, this is called, there's a logic to the Shastra. The Shastra, there'll be some statements which are distinctly explaining the situation. There are some statements in the Shastra which distinctly explain the abhideya, the activity to be done. And there are some statements in the Shastra which particularly outline the prayojana. So you do this for this reason, or you do this and you'll get this particular outcome. And it's deliberate. Because it's a science of symptoms. Sometimes it's called nimitta gyan. It's a science, and that's why the very pure devotees, they can understand just by the way people do things, what is going on within them. Right? This person, there's been some achievement, and now the person suddenly going into the temple, yes, everyone knows how many books I distributed, Prabhu. You know, like that. There's a mood there. And you can understand, that means that this person actually thinks that they're the doer. Which is exactly the thing that Krishna says you shouldn't think. Prakriti kriyamanani gune kamani sarvasya ahankara vimud atma kataham iti manyate. He thinks he's the doer of activities which are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. Kartahamiti manyate. It's exactly the thing that Krishna says you shouldn't think. And what happens is, if someone claims credit, then Krishna gives them the karma. It's a very interesting science to it. If someone claims it's all because of me, I'm so great, then Krishna says, okay, then here's the karma that comes along with that. But if someone doesn't take that credit, if they also recognize it's the mercy of Guru, Vaishnavas and Krishna, then someone else carries that achievement on their behalf. Right? Krishna is so kind and so selfless. What does he want to do? He wants to glorify the devotees for his own activities. Think about that. Have you ever had a friend like that? They're going to do all the heavy lifting and they're going to give you the credit for it. All you need to do is show up. And showing up has two elements to it. Showing up means externally we're doing what we can. But showing up more and more means having the right mood towards devotional life, the right mood towards the Vaishnavas. Every single one of us is showing up in two ways. One way is seen, the other way that we show up is absolutely hidden. People can't see it, but it's going on inside us. And those two things are being recognized and being reciprocated with. In fact, it's interesting, when I was looking at these verses, one of the points which come up is that this note that Kamalakant Vishwas has sent to the king, somehow or other it gets into the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that itself is very interesting. So it wasn't meant for him, it was meant for the king, but somehow he got it. Do we actually also think like this? That whatever we're doing, it's being seen by Krishna. Right? What you're thinking is being noted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When she comes into the temple, she always thinks about prasadam. Right, got it. Right? Right. This person, whenever he tells the devotees, oh, I'm so fallen, Prabhu, he's thinking, they think I'm really wonderful and special. See, he sees how we show up internally, and he sees how we show up externally. That's why we're actually meant to practice a mood in devotional service. There's a mood that we're trying to cultivate. This servant of the servant. What does that mean? Again, because the mood is also shown by the behavior. If someone really believes that they're the servant of the servant, then they feel very happy when they do what? When they serve, when they're able to contribute to another person's life. They take joy in actually giving. So every internal mood has its external symptoms. You see how it works? Everything that you are thinking is actually on display. It's actually on display, whether you know it or not. Everything that we're thinking is on display by the way that we act. There's a science to this. Even the tone of voice, it can communicate something. Things can be understood. Tone of voice, words which are used, everything. So it is a great science. How do we know what Krishna wants? You do the best in whatever service you're doing, and Krishna will organically make the arrangement. That is a fact, by the way. That I can promise you. You do whatever service you're doing, but we tend to focus on the external. There's a place for focusing on the external, but why? You do the external with devotion. If I'm arranging the garlands nicely because I really want to please Krishna, then that's the complete picture. Right? It's not just, I've got a mood, I love Krishna, but I do no service. And it's not also, I do lots of activity, but I'm wondering if all the devotees notice, do they notice that I'm doing more service than everyone else? Do they notice how great my service is? Do they notice how, when I led kirtan, it was much more ecstatic than everyone else's kirtan? That's going to kill everything. Yeah? That's not the mood. It is such a subtle science. And therefore, as people progress in this science, they're meant to become more refined. The trouble with this whole material world is it becomes more gross. And that is such a disaster for everyone. Why? Because the moment you become gross, you no longer have a proper understanding of reality. Prabhupada was in America. It was, I think, 1976, and the state that he was in was at that time the slaughterhouse capital of America. And the weather was bitterly cold. Prabhupada told the devotees, he said, if you can just get them to close down these slaughterhouses, immediately the weather will change. Right? This is why the whole world is in trouble. The moment you lose an appreciation of the subtle aspects of reality, you can do all kinds of crazy things and think that nothing's going to happen. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. There's absolutely no way that you do something that's against the laws of Krishna, and that there's no repercussions, right? And that includes the devotees, by the way. If you play politics, you have to get a reaction, because everything has a reaction. Now, someone may say, well, if I take shelter of a great devotee, okay. What does it mean to take shelter of a great devotee? It means to follow them. And there's two types of following. There's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. That means there's the instructions that were given to me by my spiritual master, and there is what would please the spiritual master in terms of the mood. So, when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to go and send an email to Guru Maharaj, what socks should I wear this morning? Right? You don't need that kind of detail, right? But if a devotee upsets you and you're thinking, I'm going to slap that devotee, you probably can figure out that your Guru Maharaj will not be pleased by that. You understand? Yeah? You don't need to check every detail because you understand there's a mood there. The mood is bhakti, the mood is devotion, the mood is humility. So that you immediately understand there are some things that Guru Maharaj would not want me to do. The Prabhupada would not want me to do. I don't need to find out every single detail. I have to use my common sense, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Both things. So if we get this right, then we can make a big difference. Anyway, I'm also conscious of time. I want to say very briefly before, because I know that there's going to make some announcements, that today is also the disappearance day of who? Narottam Das Thakur. So he was a very great devotee. He was actually born of a king. He was born into a very opulent situation, but he gave all of that up because of his detachment and just went to Vrindavan. When Narottam Das Thakur, his bodily form has all the symptoms of what's called a Mahapurush, a great devotee. Again, the externals have an indication of something internal. So he had a deep navel, long arms, there were certain lotus-like eyes, right? So this is called physiognomy, right? That the features of an individual can indicate, it's an interesting science, can indicate something. The only caveat that you have to have is that, see, where the body is right now is due to previous desires. You see, so the body, the gross body and the subtle body often take time to catch up with the consciousness. But that's why you see over time, someone comes to Krishna consciousness, they start to live a certain way, and you notice they actually become more effulgent. Have you noticed that? They actually have a glow to them. But it's not immediately. It's not like they came into the temple once and suddenly, the cream, the oil of Yule suddenly had this effect. It wasn't like that. It takes time. But first of all, your consciousness changes. Then your subtle body changes in line with your consciousness. Then your physical body catches up with your subtle body. So devotees, they actually look different. Their features are different. Sometimes, if a devotee has been meditating on Prabhupada or their spiritual master, you see that their features subtly start to resemble that person who they're meditating on. Mother Ladini, a famous Prabhupada disciple, if you look at her face, you can tell that she's been meditating on particular deities. Do you know the deities that she was so dear, that she had held so dear? Jagannath. If you look at the picture of her, you can see her physical form. It indicates a meditation on Lord Jagannath. Okay? So that meditation, it does something to an individual. So Narottam Das Thakur, he had this, because he had these indications of being a Mahapurush. His guru was Lokanath Goswami, and he was a Shiksha disciple. He learned Gaudiya philosophy from Jiva Goswami. So he arranged the first Gaurapanim festival in a place called Keturi. And it brought together so many devotees because at the time there were also differences in understanding about Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Mother Janava, right? She came and she helped to just clarify and align everything in that sense. And his kirtans, his chanting was so powerful that actually in the kirtan, which was after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the planet, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates appeared. And when he appeared, Lord Chaitanya and his associates, they were seen in different ways by different residents. So those, by different personalities in the kirtan. So those who had known Lord Chaitanya as a child, they saw him in that mood of Sakyaras, friendship, and Vatsalyaras, parental mood. Those who were followers of the six Goswamis, who had known Lord Chaitanya as a sannyasi, they saw him in Dasyaras, in the mood of servitude. Narottam Das Thakur, last point, and then I know we need to stop. He's our great acharya because he would write so many devotional bhajans which Prabhupada would emphasize, and these bhajans are as good as the Vedic literature themselves. Right? Sri Guru Charana Padma, which we sing every day, right? And also Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, which is beautiful because actually in the spiritual world he is a Manjari, right? Vilas Manjari. And she's assisting Rupa Manjari in service to Srimati Radharani. So on this day of disappearance, we can also pray to Srila Narottam Das Thakur for his blessings. These great acharyas, they're present. They're always present, especially on their appearance and disappearance days. They're present in their bhajans and in their writings. So if we read something of their writings, reflect on, pray, we can also have their association. Okay, so we'll stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.